All right, we're back here once again on the episode 44, the Rigo edition of Commanders in the Chat with your two favorite commanders. What's going on, Commander Cruz?
What's going on, Coach? How's it going? Happy Thursday.
Good. Yeah, I'm good. Happy Thursday and also happy game week. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars on the menu this week. So we had to bring in our guest, my guy, Mike Patton from the Touring the AFC South podcast. What's going on, Mike?
Oh, nothing much, man. I was talking about menu, man. You're making me hungry.
Right. Yeah. So we got definitely a great show lined up for you. So we'll talk about this episode 44, the John Rigo episode. And also we are a William Jackson 3 days away from our kickoff. Rob, you don't care over there? I know. I was like, when I seen 3, I was like, you know what? I gotta get Rob on this one because we know that's not your favorite. So
you could have thrown it back and did a Dustin Hopkins. I would have been okay with that.
But yeah, so we definitely got a great show lined up for you. So we'll go around the horn for this matchup here. What we got first topic we want to discuss is the storyline to watch. And we got to have, and matter of fact, and come to think about it, since the new rebranding of the podcast, Mike, you are our first guest in the Commanders in the Chat. When we used to be to watch the football guys, we kind of converted over. So you are our first guest on our revamped show. So we'll lead you off. So what is the storyline to watch in this matchup between the Commanders and the Jaguars?
Well, thank you again for having me and allowing me to grace the new digs and kind of looking around the stadium, waving at all the fans. I'm just gonna kind of break it down for them, like the podcast, not podcasters, but the announcers and all those different people do, while the crowd's going wild. Yeah. Okay, one thing storyline to look at is the offense and the functional offense of the Washington Commanders versus the Jacksonville defense, who has a renewed energy with Trayvon Walker on one side, Josh Allen on the other. Now, you lost Brandon Sheriff in the offseason, so the offensive line took a hit. Now you've got that big behemoth, Trayvon Walker on one side, Josh Allen on the other, and both of those two guys have the potential to be a potential top duo in the NFL over time, rushing the passer. So that's going to be a huge thing to watch. Can the Washington offensive line kind of hold up, give Carson Wentz some time to actually make a play or, not make a play? We'll see what happens. But anyway, that's a key. And then for Washington, the biggest key is going to be running the football. Jacksonville Jaguars aren't necessarily the greatest team against stopping the run. I like to call them, the last few years, the donut defense. They had a lot of pieces on the outside, but then the inside is either whole or it's a bunch of jelly, which is really, really soft. So, to me, that's going to be the test. Can the Washington Commanders run the football at the Jacksonville Jaguars? If the Jaguars can stand up and stop it, then that's a whole new set of problems that the Commanders have. But running the football, I know that the Commanders are definitely familiar with doing that with the weapons that they have. So they need to run the football, set everything else up around that, makes things in life a lot easier.
Absolutely. Rob, your storyline to watch.
So from a Commander standpoint, my storyline is definitely going to be that offense. See what this offense can do against, like you mentioned, that they do have nice pieces on the outside. Can Carson Wentz get something going in the 3 preseason games where the action that he got didn't play well? Taylor Heineke outplayed him in the Kansas City game. Sam Howell outplayed him in the Carolina game. He benefited from Brian Robinson, and say what you want about us losing Brandon Sheriff, which yes, that was a huge hit to our offensive line, but our first string offensive line played very well this preseason. Allowed Brian Robinson to really get out into the open field, get to that second level, and showcase his skill set. And they did the same thing for Antonio Gibson until he fumbled it, and Brian Robinson got most of the carries as the primary guy. They can do that for Antonio Gibson, and I believe they will. Like you said, the middle of that interior defensive line is suspect, and that's kind of the strength of our offensive line. Big boy Chase in the middle at center So definitely gonna be able to make holes for Antonio Gibson to get some room. Still have J.D. McKissick, who not only is a good runner but a great pass catcher. And then hopefully that'll set up the play action pass to Terry McLaurin, Dehan Dotson, Logan Thomas, De'Ami Brown if he decides he wants to show up. He can get a pass or two in the game. But from a Jaguar standpoint, it's going to be the development of Trevor Lawrence going into year 2. Year 1 was he had his moments. He definitely had his moments. Overall, I think it was a lackluster season, but you kind of expect that from number 1 overall pick. That was the reason the Jaguars had the first pick last year, and so you don't expect obviously him to come out, ball out, playoff team, Super Bowl contenders right away. You just want to see him progress, and I think that's going to be the biggest line for the Jaguars this year.
Yeah. The storyline, we talked about this in the preseason. Carson Wentz has 3 mental tests. Obviously, mental test number 1 is this week. Obviously, with Jacksonville Jaguars, just the history of it. Last year, his last opponent last year when he was a Colt, where he didn't win that game against them. And then Doug Peterson is now the head coach with Jacksonville. So it's I call it the student versus the pupil matchup, where in this case, pretty much Doug knows everything about Carson Wentz. So it's the first mental test. And then also on our end, from the Commander standpoint, if Brandon Sheriff comes back, he's returning, a guy that was a heart and soul of our offensive line, as you talked about him earlier, Mike, where he's back now and he's going to pretty much anchor that Jacksonville Jaguars offensive line going forward. So a homecoming of sorts in a multitude of ways. So this is going to be, an interesting matchup to say the least. So let's see what we got here. Your X Factor. I'm go with you first, Mike. Who is your X Factor in this matchup?
As far as the X Factor for the you mean offensively, or are you talking about defensively for both teams, or you want me to give it for both?
Either or, whoever you decide. It could be on both sides. It could be anybody, really, honestly.
Okay, as far as offensively for the Jacksonville Jaguars, I'm going to say Zay Jones. In talking with Locked On Jaguars, Tony Wiggins, I actually found out that Zay Jones has had probably the best camp of any wide receiver at the Jacksonville Jaguars facility. So he's the guy that could potentially break out and have a good game for them offensively. You would hope it would be Travis Etienne, but, I'm looking at Zay Jones, and I'm thinking that Trevor Lawrence is going to have to put the ball in the air just a little bit. As far as defensively for the Jaguars, I'm going to say Andre Cisco, the safety from Syracuse. Last year, he wasn't necessarily used quite as well as he could have, but of course, was anybody really used well under the Urban Meyer regime? So, with Cisco there at the safety position, I think he'll definitely be able to do his thing. I think Doug Peterson and his defensive coaches will allow him to be able to flourish and do the things that he did at Syracuse, and he did so well at Syracuse, might I add. So those were 2 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. As far as for the Washington Commanders, I'm going to say that Gibson is probably going to be the X factor to me. Terry McLaurin is going to be out there doing his thing, but they need Gibson to be that guy. Not just be a guy, the guy, and then not fumble as well. Not fumble. Go to a hypnotist if he needs to. Whatever he needs to do to not fumble. As far as defensively, you got plenty of guys there, but I think Mr. Curl is still there at safety, correct?
Yeah.
I think that he could potentially have an effect on this game. I mean, he does have pretty good skills back there as a safety. I've kind of watched him play, being that, I did play the safety and defensive back position all the way through college. So kind of watched his game. I like his game and the intangibles that he brings. So he could definitely have an impact as well.
Yep. Rob, who is your X factors?
So from a Commander standpoint on offense, I'm going with Armani Rogers. He was Carson Wentz's favorite target in the preseason. Carson Wentz has always loved throwing to tight ends throughout his entire career. He had Zach Ertz, the beginning part of his career in Philadelphia. I think that's going to carry over. Logan Thomas is still out. He's not playing week 1. I look at Armani Rogers, especially as Carson Wentz still growing and learning the playbook. That's going to be his safety outlet. In week 1, I see him having a pretty decent game, big game for his standards. Defensively, I got to go Cam Curl as well. Don't know what we're going to get from Trevor Lawrence in year 2, how much he has progressed. But it's time for Cam Curl to he's kind of turning into the leader of the defense. We have Kendall Fuller, so he's definitely there too. But his, he needs a Robin to his Batman as far as the secondary goes. And I don't think William Jackson is that guy. And I think Cam Crow needs to step up and be that Robin. For Jaguars, I think Trevor Lawrence is going to end up being the X factor. He's going to have to be. Again, going into year 2, I keep saying it, but going into year 2, the growth he needs to show in order to elevate this team. Again, not necessarily a playoff team or a contender, but just showing that he's making the right steps forward to be that he's the guy that this team can be built around. And for the defense, it's going to be those 2 defensive ends, because again, if they want any chance of stopping this offense, Carson Wentz has his struggles, but if he has all day to throw in the pocket, then it's hard for any defense to win when you don't get pressure. Against the quarterback.
Yeah, and most definitely. Definitely huge shout out to our guy, Daryl. Definitely appreciate you for checking us out. So we got this X factor for the Commanders. Logan Thomas, if he plays, because we all, like you said, and that's a great point where Wentz does love tight ends. Obviously, Zach Ertz in Philly, and that is concerned. And then also he gave us his his X factor for Jacksonville. We got Josh Allen, the other Josh Allen. Shout out to
the real
Josh Allen. The real Josh Allen, right? Oh boy, yeah. So he'll keep Wentz under pressure. But I think from the Commander standpoint, I look at who's going to be the X factor. I know you guys talked about Cam Curl, but also another guy on that secondary. I think that could potentially make plays as well. Bobby McCain. I think he'll be one where I think he has that instinctive playmaking ability as well. Especially, and we talk about it, Rob, like it's almost ad nauseum how our secondary just get torched every week. And it's just like we always yearn for somebody in that secondary to make a play or do something. So this could be a potential where I can see maybe a Bob McClain does his thing. And even with Jacksonville, I look at, like you said, and it's funny you brought up Zay Jones, because Zay Jones was one of those guys who kind of, I wouldn't say he did his thing against us when he was playing with the Raiders last year in that December 5th matchup that we had with the Raiders. So it's kind of interesting that, and then also bringing in like a guy like Evan Ingram, kind of 2 guys with somewhat, obviously we're more familiar with Evan Ingram. So that's definitely, like you said, it's going to be definitely key. And Jacksonville, like you said, I think it's just their linebacker core is pretty much going to be their X factor. Obviously, as you talked about it, Mike, earlier, as far as, you got Trayvon Walker on one side, Josh Allen. And then, coupled with, though, they got a solid linebacker core. Like, it's one of those where, they got some up-and-coming emerging guys where it's scary maybe when we play them again in 4 years. Like, and I think it's going to be potentially scary in this matchup. So, you look at like Devin Lloyd. I think he's somebody that's going to emerge. I think they got him at a bargain in the draft. So I look at him as an emerging for this team. But I definitely think that this linebacker core definitely, and especially with our run, and then also definitely with like you said, if we get Logan Thomas, if he's available, if he's going to be or whoever we have at tight end, John Bates, or whoever's going to be there. They're going to be critical as far as the success. If they get success on those type of plays with our tight ends and our run game, so they'll definitely be huge factors. So let's see what we got here. So fellas, matchup to watch. Any specific matchups that you guys are looking forward to in this matchup? I'm gonna go with you first, Mike. Your thoughts on the matchup to watch.
Well, you kind of led me right into where I was thinking. The Jacksonville Jaguars spent money on Olaquan from the Atlanta Falcons last year, and he's one of their inside linebackers to go along with Devin Lloyd. So I'm going to keep my eye on him because he's a tackling machine, and he was, I believe, he was a Pro Bowler, I believe, or close to it. If he wasn't, but he'll definitely be a guy to watch versus the Washington Commanders interior offensive line because he was brought there to help against the run and to make things happen. And if he's doing his job, then that means the Washington Commanders aren't running the football very well. And that bodes well for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Another matchup to watch, I would say, is just the Commanders defensive backs versus the Jacksonville Jaguars wide receivers because the Jacksonville Jaguars spent money this offseason, as you all know, on wide receivers. Of course, they get talked about Christian Kirk and all the money he paid him, even though his contract amounts to about 2 years and what $36 or $39 million is what it really amounts to, not 4 years and 70 some odd million. But I digress. But that's a guy to watch. And then of course I call him Bruce Leroy, but you call him Zay Jones. He did kind of look like Bruce Leroy when he was signing that contract. So I call him Bruce Leroy. Bruce Leroy is going to definitely be trying to show he's definitely can get it done out there, and have him saying show enough out there. So that'll be the matchups I'm looking at from both sides in terms of offense, defense, and defense, offense.
Yep. And Rob, what you got?
I'm gonna go a little bit more specific than what Mike said. He brought up Jags wide receivers against our DBs. I'm gonna go more specific. Christian Kirk against what I'm gonna presume is going to be William Jackson III, mainly because, and Mike alluded to it as well, the money that team paid Christian Kirk is a ridiculous amount of money. And when you break it down, yes, it's not as bad as it looks, but compared to other receivers in the game, it could end up being probably one of the worst free agent contracts Jacksonville ever signs, depending on what he's able to do with it. And if anybody knows bad free agent signings, coach, it's us. We be winning Super Bowls in March and April. Albert Hainsworth, number $100 million man, couldn't even pass the conditioning test. But I digress. But again, back to the point. Christian Kirk, the amount of money that they paid, is he going to be able to capitalize on the other human garbage can in William Jackson III? As long as Jacksonville's able to stay between 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2, we're good. We're solid. I love our chances. It's once we're 3rd and 7 and beyond. I'm much more comfortable with 3rd and 1 than I am with 3rd and 15, 3rd and 20. 3rd and 20, I have no hope for us at all.
Yeah, close your eyes, man, if it's 3rd and 20, because Carson Wentz might mess around and make one of them Carson Wentz things happen.
No, I'm talking about if it's 3rd and 20 for you guys.
Oh,
if you guys have the ball and it's 3rd and 20, I am not confident in our second. If it's 3rd and 1, we're getting the stop 9 times out of 10. 3rd and 20, nah, y'all can
3rd and 20. Oh,
26. We had 26-yard reception. That's going to happen, man. But I think the biggest matchup, and I know you talked about a secondary, our wide receiver core versus their secondary in a sense. Well, I mean, in the inverse. I'm just curious how Jacksonville is going to definitely, as far as their corners, you look at Shaquille Griffin and Tyson Campbell, like, are they going to be kind of interchangeable where, obviously we got Terry on one side, Jahan on the other, then we got Curtis in the slide. So I'm kind of interested of how they're going to play that, like as far as what's going to end up happening, who's going to draw that matchup. Are we going to see like potentially a double coverage on one side, or what's going to end up happening if they're going to drop safeties or whatever they're going to do in those schemes. So I'm really curious because we all know, I think this Jacksonville secondary is kind of by committee. They just don't have that number one guy that's like, we're going to put him on Terry per se. And I think that's going to be kind of interesting of who's going to be guarding Terry on one side or Jahan on the other. So it might be like a committee.
I had a thought there for you. They did bring in Williams from the Rams as well, so don't forget about him either.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
a whole guy, and they brought him in. So I would say that more than likely, what's going to happen is I think Tyson Campbell will probably get more of a shot guarding Scary Terry than what Griffin would get. Because speaking again to Locked On Jaguars, Terry, good gracious, Tony Wiggins. He was telling me that there's a lot of people that are all the way in on Griffin and some people that are all the way out on Griffin. So it's kind of split there on him. So, but when it comes to Tyson Campbell, they like the size, the speed, and things like that. So he has the size and speed to deal with Terry. So I would say that more than likely you're going to see Campbell match up with him more than you end up seeing Griffin matched up with him. But of course, I could be wrong. They could rotate it, or they could stay on one side of the field or the other. But if I were the defensive coordinator, I would have Campbell on him more because he's more of a big body, more physical guy. He doesn't have great ball skills, but he definitely, can play defensive back.
Yeah, big time. Let's see what we got here. Storyline matchup. So in this, I guess you can say in this history between the Jaguars, the Commanders, Washington football team, Redskins, whatever. It's not as many games as most of our rival. Obviously, we talk about divisional foes from time to time and some of our NFC foes. But this is definitely an interesting take. You good on this, Mike, or you want us to you want the Commander to take over this one?
I mean, you all can go ahead. I'm
okay.
I'm kind of going over moments in my mind right now.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna go with you first, Rob. What you got?
The first one that comes to mind is 2006 when a then young Jack Del Rio was the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, allowed Mark Brunell to put up 30 points against his team. The more things change, the more they stay the same. And it was so crazy because I remember it being such a back and forth game. Santana Moss, probably one of his better games he's played. I know his first touchdown he scored, I think it was like a 50, 60 yarder. Juked the dude out of his cleats, activated the washing machine spin cycle on his way to his first touchdown of the game. Tied 30-30 going into overtime. Washington wins the coin toss. They elect to receive, obviously. Get the ball, I think 3 plays later. Mark Brunell throws a dime to Santana Moss on the sideline, who was essentially double covered. I think the safety kind of tried to jump it and jumped too early, missed the ball. Moss caught it and was able to turn around and burn the corner for the game-winning touchdown.
Yeah, they had great chemistry. Santana Moss and Mark Brunell, they had great chemistry. Actually, the moment I'm looking that I remember, obviously, because that was the last matchup, was December of 2018. That's when we went to Jacksonville. Since 6 and 7, we went through the car wash of quarterbacks, obviously, after the injury to Mark Brunell. That was the week before Mark Sanchez blew up our playoff chances. I still blame him for that year, honestly, more so than anybody. But Josh Johnson comes out of he didn't start a game in 7 years. He goes on to win. We were down by 10 points in the fourth quarter. He threw his long touchdown pass to Wayback Machine. I got Jeremy Sprinkle, the pride of Arkansas. So he threw that, and then my all-time favorite kicker. Well, he ain't my all-time favorite kicker in this modern era, probably. Dustin Hopkins kicked that field goal to win the game 16-13. And we get to 500, and then that week we went to Tennessee and lost. Yep. That Saturday before Christmas.
Christmas Eve, yeah.
Yeah, Christmas Eve, yeah. I remember that. And that ended our playoff hopes at that time.
That whole season was a roller coaster.
It really was.
Trading for Kirk Cousins. I remember when we traded Kirk Cousins we traded for Alex Smith. I was in Guam that day. I was on deployment, had just pulled into Guam, read it, and I was like, all right, well, Kirk's done, obviously. Starting 6-3, first in the division, and then from there, him breaking his leg, it was an absolute roller coaster.
Yeah, it was the best of times and the worst of times.
Oh, yeah.
Damn you, Texans.
I've got my moment, though.
We are really unloaded on Mike. Sorry, we done brought up all the AFC South trauma we didn't have for the last 15 years.
Well, allow me to bring up a little bit more trauma.
Oh, Lord.
I'm sorry. But as you know, the Washington Commanders have only lost one time to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're 6-1 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That one win that the Jacksonville Jaguars had, the Washington Commanders were up 7-0 in the first quarter, and everything was looking great. Jacksonville scores 26 straight points, wins 26-7. Shane Matthews at quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Ryan Gardner catches a 20-yard touchdown pass. Stacey Mack with a touchdown run. And then to cap it all off, Fred Taylor with a 12-yard TD run. Curtains game.
2002.
So that was, yep.
Oh, Jesus.
That was a bad loss when you have Shane Matthews leading the charge at quarterback. Just bad.
All right, Mike. In his defense, he had a good year. That 0-1 Bears team was pretty good. I know, even though he didn't lead that team offensively, but in Shane Matthews' defense, he came off a good year in 2001, and then that was Spurrier's boy. Going back to Florida. So yeah.
Yeah, the Shane. I'll take the Dave Matthews Band over Shane Matthews. This is what it is.
I know, man. That was good old days. We had him, then we had Patrick Ramsey, Danny Wolford. Like, man, I tell you,
I'm trying to figure out. I'm like, man, so he beat you. Then Spurrier brings him in to be the quarterback, and then he just doesn't do the same things. And you're just like, wow, well, Spurrier, why? Spurrier was trying to collect all his Florida players at one time. That's what he was trying to do.
That's literally what he was trying to do.
Yeah, because he had
Riddell Anthony on that team.
Oh, yeah.
Who else did he have on that team? That was did he have any other wide receivers on that team? Was Jacquez Green? No, Jacquez Green wasn't on that team.
He was with Tampa. I think
he was Tampa. Yeah, he was with Tampa.
That was a horrible year.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what Steve Spurrier and the crazy part about all of that. You can talk about how bad Steve Spurrier was, but it still doesn't pale in comparison to how bad Urban Meyer was with the entire experience.
Right. At least he stayed the entire year, compared to Urban. But yeah,
Urban was doing the most, man. He was doing the absolute most. Urban thought he was just living the life to do whatever. He thought he was Teflon Don, couldn't be touched. But no, that wasn't the case.
Yeah. He definitely thought he was at Ohio State for sure. He thought he was the big man on campus for sure. This is told it's a different beast. Boy. Shane Matthews. Oh my, Shane freaking Matthews.
Yep. I took it way back.
Yes, indeed. I remember that. Oh, yeah, that was right. 20 years on the diet. Yep, 20 years on the diet. Yes, indeed. So Mike, what is the key to a Jacksonville Jaguars win?
Key to a Jacksonville Jaguars win. Stop the run. Stop the run. Stop the run. Stop the run. They haven't stopped the run in a couple years. So if they're able to do that, that's going to make the Washington Commanders actually, have to do other things like, Carson Wentz throw the entire game, which enhances the chance he will make a mistake. So stop the run the football with ETN and James Robinson. Jaguars win if they're able to control the trenches in that aspect.
Okay. So now we got to get to the Commander side of things. So, Rob, what is the keys to a Commander's win?
Carson Wentz consistency. He doesn't even have to play great. He doesn't have to play at an MVP level yet. He just needs to be consistent. He needs to make the right reads. He needs to find the open man, which last year he was actually pretty good at that. 27-7. He didn't play terrible last year. The league and fans tend to have a recency bias, and everybody looks to, myself included, for the most part, we look at that game against Jacksonville where he could not get anything going and beat lost to a clearly inferior team. Obviously, number one pick again. You have the number one pick for a reason. You're not able to beat that team. There's something that has to be looked at. Just need consistency from him. Need good decision making, and I like that he likes tight ends. That's going to be his safety outlet. That's going to get him out of a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Third down defense. Contain them on third down. That's the biggest key for this Washington Commanders team, because we need that type of confidence. We talk about this every week, where when we lose, the most glaring stat is third down of defense efficiency. Like, as far as, so we've always, I think we even had down to a science, like, hell, if you just get them down to 40%, we got a fighter's chance. It's just like we broke it down, because it was like weeks they were like 70%, 60%, and we're like, so now, third down defense is critical, because obviously, considering the fact that, hey, we know what that does, that gives your defense a break. They don't have to, as far as when it comes to the war of attrition in the fourth quarter, a little bit more that, you don't have to necessarily, you'll expend all your energy in these drives that continue on, that you just need to just stop right then and there. And I think Carson Wentz, like you said, I don't necessarily think he has a play like lights out, but I just want him, the key for us is how he will rebound after making mistakes.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's a mental thing with him. I think, like I talk about all the time, we talk about all the time on the show, I don't worry about his ability. I worry about his mental. In this case, especially compared with, you have a quarterback in Trevor Lawrence who was cool as a cucumber versus a Carson Wentz who could potentially, not lose it, but more so you can tell, like, when he's bothered and he gets flustered. You can kind of tell in his play that he get flustered. And I think Carson Wentz, if he can exploit that Jacksonville secondary, get himself some confidence, I think that's another key to the win. Like you said, to your point, Mike, where if you put him, if you just, what they call unleash, like let him just do his thing, then he's bound to make a mistake. But the thing is, like you said, if he makes that mistake, can he bounce back from those mistakes? So I think those are the keys for a Washington Commanders win.
Hey, Coach, can I say something real quick?
Absolutely.
I need y'all to do one thing and one thing only before every game when Carson Wentz comes out.
Oh, Lord, wait.
Crank up the Tina Turner.
Oh.
We don't need another hero. Play that every game before he comes out the tunnel, because you can guarantee he's going to have moments where he plays hero ball. Crank that loud as you can hear it, so they can hear it a country mile away, so he gets that in his head. We don't need another hero out here today. Just follow the game plan.
And it's funny that you say that, because we said that a lot with Taylor Heineke last year. We had that same song and dance with him last year, where, and it's funny that you say that, because we used to say that every week, like kind of almost preface that point where it's like, when you do too much, that's when, like, because we always look at him as like, we want him to just be Taylor Heineke, don't be Brett Favre. Like, don't be the other four. You wear the number 4 on your chest, but you're not Brett Favre. So it's like, you can't get away with that type of stuff. Like you said, you can't be like Carson Wentz. Like I said, Carson Wentz can't be the hero. Like, yes, he might have the C on his chest or might have a S underneath his jersey, but don't, like you said, don't be a hero because we really necessarily don't need it per se, But yeah, you're right. Yeah, we'll play that. I'll crank it up. He hear loud enough. I'm about 200 miles. I mean, about 120 some miles away from the stadium, so they probably can hear me.
Give it a little bit of time. It'll get there.
Right. Yeah. So, fellas, it is prediction time. So, our guest, Mike, score this game.
Okay. Hear me out. I'll give you kind of a rundown how we get there, too.
Okay.
All right. The Jacksonville Jaguars are going to come out fired up. They're going to stuff the run just a little bit. The Commanders are going to make some plays in the running game. The Jaguars are going to, use the running game to set up the play action and the passing game as well. And with that being said, running game dominating on both sides, stopping it and throwing it, and stopping it and running it, I should say. The Jacksonville Jaguars will win this game pretty low scoring, 23-20. Kicker kicks a field goal in the last couple of minutes to send them to a opening season win.
You sound like those folks at the NFL Network.
No, I promise I do not practice any of this. It just comes off the top of my head.
No, I'm joking. No, I'm just like, no, I've been like on this, like, I cannot believe like half their experts like got Jacksonville winning this game. But that's just me personally. It's not, it's all good. It's all good.
I see them. I see them winning about 8 games this year. So they got to win this one.
Yeah. Rob, what you got?
So the logic is sound. I like where he was going with it. The run game going to be vital, and whoever runs better will most likely come out on top. The thing is, Washington still has a better offensive line from what I've seen this offseason, and they have a better run game. They have a better running back committee. So if we're going just off a run game, Washington's going to win. I still believe it's going to be low scoring. I think Wentz is going to play well. He really needs to play well to get the little confidence boost. I think Wentz is going to throw for about 280, just under 300. I think Antonio Gibson is going to have about 75 yards and a touchdown. Wentz is going to throw a touchdown. He might even run for one. And I think it's going to be low scoring. I'm going to say probably about a 17-23 Washington Commanders victory on our way to 17-0.
Yeah, what was the score again, Rob? He said 28.
I say 17-23.
Okay, 23-17. Okay. All right. So I think Carson Wentz does get his first win on his one of 3 of his mental test. One is going to pass. I think we're going to win by the final score of 27-21. Carson Wentz will lead us down the field and score the game-winning touchdown, and we get out of Dodge at home, win our first game, and head on down to Detroit and get our ditches ready. But yeah, so
you gonna ride? They gonna ride down to Detroit through 8 Mile.
Oh boy!
I get the mind right.
Yeah, you gotta get the mind right. Yeah,
I get that mom spaghetti.
Yeah, they definitely trying to lose themselves in the moment. They're trying to go to
big facts, right? Hey, that would be something, right? Hey, no, knee slapper.
Oh goodness.
But yeah, man. So once again, we'll put a bow on this week's Commanders in the chat. Definitely appreciate you, Mike, for coming through. Tell them where they can find you on social media and all your upcoming projects that you got going on.
You can find me on Twitter at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePatton 82, and on Instagram at the THA_general_MP. That's the_general_MP. course, you can find my podcast, Touring the AFC South, on all listening platforms. That's iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you can find it, it's there. Of course, got the Colts preview coming up tomorrow, and also I've got Jim Trotter coming on with me, so we will definitely be having that out as soon as possible as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Rob, social media, what you got going on, upcoming projects?
Y'all already know where you can find me, FNC Pod on Twitter, Football and Chill Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. I just put out a YouTube video a couple of days ago on college football expansion, kind of give my thoughts and why it's good and can be bad potentially, and what it means for specifically Notre Dame. So definitely go check that out.
Golden Dogs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So find me pretty much on the main one, Couch Coach Live, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Couch Coach Live. Also, social media here, Commanders, ITC Anyway podcast. We're there as well. Apple, Spotify, you're there. And also social media for the Commanders in the chat, Commanders ITC. That's on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. I do a plethora of Commander shows, obviously at Play Callers, NFL Matchup Preview. Mike, you on there as well. My brother in on that one as well too. And the NFL Carousel, I do a bit for them as well for the Commanders. I do a few things for the Commanders as well. So once again, definitely appreciate our special guest here for providing us great analysis and a little bit of emotional damage from 2002. So,
you know, I'm glad I wasn't big into football at that point because I have no recollection of that game.
I remember that. And when you said that, I was like, oh, that was yep.
Oh my goodness, that was an interesting one.
Absolutely, yeah. But yeah, man, definitely appreciate you for coming through. And man, this has been this week's Commanders in the Chat. We're definitely looking forward to our season opener against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And man, we'll catch you guys on the next episode. And we're out.